Welcome to a journey through the December 1987 issue of Gold Belt Wrestling, a time capsule from the final days of territorial power, brimming with fantasy matches, scathing commentary, editorial crusades, and the pulse of an industry at war with itself. We open with one of the most ambitious fantasy battles ever printed. 6 matches pitting Ric Flair and Lex Luger against Randy Macho Man Savage and Jesse the Body Ventura. Each bout is conducted under different stipulations: cage match, no disqualification, Texas death match, lumberjack, and more. The story unfolds like epic myth. Ventura, strong but cocky; Flair, cunning and desperate; Savage, wild and unhinged; Luger, a machine of muscle. Blood flows, fans cheer and gasp. Each team scores 3 victories, ending in a deadlock that leaves the reader begging for more. It's bold, it's theatrical, and it sets the tone for the entire issue. From fantasy to fury, we meet a changed Ken Patera. After serving 18 months in prison, he emerges to face the man who turned his back on him, Bobby Heenan. Their confrontation on WWF TV turns into a full-blown melee, with Patera swinging chairs and chasing ghosts. The article delves into Patera's time in prison, his renewed focus, and the growing fan sympathy for a man trying to reclaim his name. Then the reader mail section, Backtalk, elevates fan voice. One reader from Maine suggests a kids section, and editor Virginia Bowes listens. The result? A brand new column called Kids Corner launching next issue. It will feature essays by young fans about their favorite stars, and winning entries will earn U.S. savings bonds. It's a democratic gesture in a rigid world, a rare moment when the ring ropes are lowered for everyone. The staff bios follow, and they are anything but ordinary. Mighty Mike Kimmel, a trained wrestler and Brandeis graduate, is described as the finest mat journalist alive. Howard T. Brody has a resume that spans radio horror shows and Florida wrestling coverage, and at the helm sits Virginia Bowes, sharp, uncompromising, and respected. This team isn't printing puff pieces. They're documenting history. Then comes the editorial napalm. Coach Kurt takes a blowtorch to the AWA. He slams their half-filled Cow Palace shows, their reliance on aging stars, and mocks the persistence of Greg Gang and Buck Zumhofe. He calls out Ken Timms as an unworthy contender. The AWA, once mighty, is depicted as crumbling, held together by stale reruns and nostalgia. It's not criticism, it's an obituary. In the Reflective Rankings Revisited section, GBW revisits its 1986 year-end picks: Flair, Hogan, Martel, Savage, Bockwinkel. The Bulldogs, Rock and Roll Express, and Road Warriors headline the tag division. The women's rankings feature Misty Blue, Wendy Richter, and Debbie Combs. It's a who's who of a fading era. Time Limit Tidbits fires quick hits with massive implications. Rick Rude has jumped to the WWF. Tito Santana is sinking down the card. Andre is off shooting the Princess Bride. WWF invades Ohio. NWA expands in Chicago. It's a subtle signal. The landscape is shifting. Vince McMahon's shadow looms over everything. Canada brings its own drama. Owen Hart struggles to hold on to the North American title amid repeated interference by Jason the Terrible. Devil Masami and Mika Komatsu begin to dominate the Canadian women's scene, not as eye candy but as fierce competitors. Gold Belt gives them the respect they deserve. Then, controversy. An insider plots to have GBW publish a false expose on Dr. D. David Schultz. Editor Virginia Bowes halts the presses, investigates, refuses. Instead, she runs a full-page apology to Schultz and exposes the attempt to slander him. It's more than editorial integrity. It's a declaration of war on rumor-mongers and liars. In the ICW, chaos reigns. Phil Apollo battles Ivan Putski in a steel cage. The title is declared vacant. Tony Atlas, Joe Savoldi, and Robbie Ellis all circle the gold. Eric Sbracha, a 5'10" antagonist, cheats and climbs the rankings. Gustav the Giant towers at 7'4". It's an unpredictable jungle. In Continental Championship Wrestling, Buddy Landell, the self-declared nature boy, reigns with arrogance. Doug Furness emerges as a challenger, his raw power and amateur background making him a real threat. Their rivalry peaks in a Texas death match. The result? The lights go out. When they return, Furness is unconscious and Ron Wright stands tall. The old guard refuses to fade. The fantasy match series between Flair and Luger and Savage and Ventura isn't just hypothetical. It's a microcosm of wrestling psychology. Savage's intensity meets Flair's cunning. Ventura's arrogance fuels Luger's brute efficiency. The cage match, featuring bloodied foreheads and desperate escapes, sets the tone. The lumberjack match becomes a ringside riot as both teams' allies, real and imagined, pile in, foreshadowing the interpromotional chaos that fans always dreamed of. When the Texas death match ends with both men unable to stand, it underscores the equal fire burning in all four athletes. It's fan fiction, but executed with emotional precision. Ken Patera's feature draws attention to the human element often lost in kayfabe. The article unpacks how prison changed him, not just physically, but emotionally. He's leaner, focused, and haunted. The feud with Heenan isn't just a storyline, it's a man confronting abandonment. When Heenan mocks him on air, it's real venom. Patera's chair-swinging rage feels like more than just an angle. It's a personal catharsis. The editorial team's decision to include young voices with the launch of Kids Corner is more than a gimmick. It's symbolic of a shift in media responsibility. GBW was acknowledging that children didn't just watch. They understood, they analyzed, and they had something to say. The Bond Prize was generous, but the platform itself was historic. Virginia Bowes emerges not just as an editor, but as a journalistic force. Her refusal to run a false hit piece on David Schultz isn't just commendable, it's revolutionary for wrestling media. In an industry built on blurred lines, Bowes draws a hard one. You don't lie to readers. You don't destroy a man's name for page views. Her full-page apology becomes a declaration of ethics. Coach Kurt's editorial on the AWA is expanded further in tone. He isn't just criticizing bookings, he's holding a mirror up to a dying empire. Vern Gain, blinded by loyalty, continues to push his son Greg and over-relies on nostalgia acts. Fans in San Francisco are offered rehashed main events and fading stars. Kurt calls for reform or resignation, nothing less. The Canadian scene gets deeper analysis. Owen Hart, one of the most technically gifted wrestlers in North America, is forced into circus-like defenses against Jason the Terrible. The contrast is jarring. Meanwhile, the coverage of Devil Masami and Mika Komatsu signals GBW's progressive stance on women's wrestling. Masami isn't just dominant, she's respected. Komatsu is called a future world champion in bold print. These profiles challenge the often sexist presentation of women in wrestling media. The ICW chaos spirals outward. Apollo's steel cage battle with Putski becomes a metaphor for the unpredictability of independent wrestling. The title scene becomes a revolving door, as giants and underdogs clash without a clear hierarchy. Sbracha cheats and wins. Gustav throws men across the ring. The crowd is as much a character as the wrestlers. In Continental, the Landell versus Furnace feud deepens. Buddy Landell cuts scathing promos, calling Furnace just a musclehead with a bench press record. Furnace, reserved but furious, lets his fists talk. When Ron Wright interferes, fans scream betrayal. Wright was supposed to be retired. The match ends not with resolution, but revelation. Old alliances still cast long shadows. And finally, the expose on shady wrestling schools hits hard. The article lists horror stories. Students promised WWF tryouts for $3,000, only to end up in barns with no ring, no trainers, and no future. Goldbelt's decision to blacklist these scams is not just editorial, it's advocacy. They vow to verify every future school ad. In a business full of cons, this was a beacon. Goldbelt Wrestling wasn't just reporting news, it was curating a cultural archive. The December 1987 issue functions like a time bomb, preserving the voices, failures, ambitions, and betrayals of an entire industry caught between old tradition and modern spectacle. It's a love letter, a warning, and a manifesto, all at once.